Hello and welcome back once again to CBR MTG. Doing something a little bit different today. I'm joined here by Jacob Dunn.
Hi.
And today we're going to be talking deck lists. We're going to be going through one of Jacob's babies, and I think I'll let him take the reins. So Jacob, what is Hermit Druid?
Hermit Druid's a creature that's gained a point thanks to Luke Mulch back in 2014, I think. It's 1 green for a 1/1 human druid. Has an activate ability of green tap, reveal cards from the top of your library until you reveal a non-basic land, a basic land, and put the rest of the revealed cards into your graveyard. The important part of this is that if you have no basic lands in your deck, you just dump your whole deck into your yard. You then use creatures like Narcomoeba, things with Unearth, Fate Stitcher is a pretty good one, Embalm like Sacred Cat, Bloodghast, anything that recurs to get 3 creatures, so you can dread return something awful for your opponent, generally something that wins the game on the spot.
Yeah, great. That's one of the sort of quick ways to win, but obviously abusing the Hermit Druid's ability where you don't have any basic lands in your deck, so you're just completely milling yourself out, and that's one way to win. But this Hermit Druid list, this Highlander list, it has more than one way to win.
Oh, there's so many lines.
Please.
So
walk us through a couple of different ways.
So I've also included a Flash Hulk combo in there. You cast Flash, Hulk goes into play, Hulk dies. For those who don't know, Hulk is a 6/6 for 5 and double green, and when it dies, you search your library for any number of creatures whose total cost adds to 6. And so you search your deck for Nomad Encore, Cephalid Illusionist, Grand Abolisher, and any other 1-drop you feel like, just to make up space. You can do Shaman Encore, Cephalid Illusionist, and Grand Abolisher as well, if you happen to have the Nomads Encore in hand. And Nomad Encore and Shaman Encore both have the ability 0 mana, redirect 1 damage. The next 1 damage would be dealt to them to target creature. And you just target the Cephalid Illusionist to mill yourself 3 cards at a time. Again, getting back a bunch of creatures and dread returning something bad for your opponent. And the Grand Abolisher is that extra safety, so your opponent can't interact with you except through lands.
Yeah,
cards in hand. So Fairy Macabre is bad for you, and that new desert from
Scavenger Grounds.
Yeah, Scavenger Grounds.
Yeah.
Yep. Other than that, you're pretty safe.
Yeah, great. And there's one more, if I'm not mistaken.
And World Gorge Dragon, card that I loved when I opened it back in the pre-constructed deck back in Judgment.
Oof.
Played it fairly. But you animate dead World Gorge Dragon, and that causes the World Gorge Dragon to exile the animate dead, Dance the Dead Necromancy, whichever you use, which causes the World Gorge Dragon to die, which causes the enchantment to come back and rinse and repeat. And you get to float mana during in between each of these triggers, and any enter the battlefield effects you have also will trigger an infinite number of times until you are forced to end the loop or you've won the game.
Yeah, great.
And the rest of the deck kind of interacts really nicely with that. So you've got a lot of enter the battlefield, but also just effects you can use. So Eternal Witness will let you recur any of the instants in your deck. Spellseeker searches out a large portion of the deck that can be cast. Woodfall Primus will destroy most of your opponent's lands. Sun Titan recurs most of the deck. You can use Sun Titan to get back Animate Dead, Dance the Dead, not the one that you're using on the World Gorge Dragon, but another one, and that then recurs any creature. And then when the World Gorge Dragon comes back in, that creature and the Animate Dead separate. Yeah. And you can then get back another creature and repeat this for each loop.
Interesting. It's it seems like a lot to jam into one small deck. What do you use to sort of tutor out or filter through your deck to find these crucial pieces?
So you've got full 1-drop tutors that can find the Hermit Druid on turn 1 to be able to play it on turn 2, which has a large percentage of your wins. You've got Worldly Tutor, Sylvan Tutor, Gamble, and Vampiric Tutor.
Yep.
And all of those can get the Hermit Druid for turn 1, but they also have other roles, obviously, because a lot of your combos are creature-based.
Yeah, great.
You've then got things like Faithless Looting, Careful Study, which loot the creatures into the graveyard in case you just need to put them there to reanimate for some fair effect, or fair, quote. You can use the Hapless Researcher, which is a 1/1 human wizard that has Sacrifice Loot.
Yep.
That creature's more quintessential to the deck than you would think. You've got Entomb, just to put something in there. And you're playing a couple of other spells that'll help you out. Incidentally, like Eldamri's Call, Flash. I've actually flashed every creature in this deck, including
Hapless Researcher.
Including Hapless Researcher, I've flashed every creature in the deck. The only one I haven't cast using the fair mode of Flash, where you actually pay for it, was World Gorge Dragon. But every other creature I have flashed and put into play fairly.
That's pretty exciting. The classic backup plan. I mean, this is at its very core a very fast combo deck.
Yes, one of the fastest. This deck, Goldfish's subpar turn 3, so that's a 2.7-ish.
Yeah, great.
Only deck I would say was faster is Channel Mirror, but this deck has a much more fair backup plan. The creatures you cast are actually quite efficient, and you can just turn them sideways. There's a lot of combat tricks.
Yep.
People who don't know what Shaman Encore does have to read it a couple of times before they learn the lesson.
Yep. Which is funny because you get a lot of free... I guess you get a lot of free wins because if you, like, turn 2 play a Hermit Druid and people don't know what Hermit Druid does,
yeah,
you just win immediately.
Definitely tell your opponent that it just finds basic lands. And if they believe you just once...
Yeah,
no, just search for basic lands. Don't worry about the rest of the text.
Yeah, absolutely. And so you've got a multitude of ways to filter through the deck. You've got a little bit of protection with the Mental Misstep. And
Grand Abolisher. The Pull from Eternity is also an interesting piece. So the actual combo win is you dread return Angel of Glory's Rise. The Angel of Glory's Rise exiles all zombies and returns all humans.
Yep.
You return Azami, Lady of Scrolls.
Yep.
Laboratory Maniac. Those are the core 2. Because then you tap it with no cards in your library, you just win the game. But you also get Hapless Researcher, Eternal Witness, Spellseeker, Hermit Druid, and I think that's it.
Yeah, great.
And the Hapless Researcher can also sacrifice to loot. It's a human wizard, so it hits both those types.
Yeah, great.
The Eternal Witness gets back the Pull from Eternity just to be safe, and the Spellseeker has a trigger that goes on the stack, and you can cast Memory Journey in response to shuffle back in a Reanimate or something in case you just need all that extra oomph.
Wow, there's definitely a lot that you can do with this deck, for sure.
And if someone interacts with you partway through somehow, you've got the extra line. The Pull from Eternity is important because you can return the Sun Titan to play, getting back the Animate Dead for the World Gorge Dragon. You start your loop, and the Pull from Eternity, you get back the Eternal Witness with the Sun Titan, and the Pull from Eternity, you can exile return any pieces from exile to your graveyard that happen to have been exiled.
Okay.
So I've had an opponent cast Gideon of the Trials, followed by Gideon Ally of Zendikar, followed by Gideon Jura in a particularly slow game. I think I mulled to 4 or something. And I went, all right, so I've got this emblem. Can you kill me through it? And I went, yes, and went through this loop. And then Woodfall Primus destroyed 3 different Gideons and then won the game. Yeah. Azami's not actually necessary. Because your Hapless Researcher, when you get back the Grand Abolisher is the missing human, comes back off the Angel of Glory's Rise, so your opponent's not going to respond to you here, and you just need that one draw to win the game. So Azami's not quintessential, but there's not too many other slots that I would consider, and there are enough games where Azami just ends up in play, drawing 3 cards at a time, because there are a reasonable density of wizards in the deck.
Secret alternate mode.
And if you happen to be going off with World Gorge Dragon and somehow get an Azami into play, that draws your deck. And
great.
There are just a number of tricks there.
It definitely takes a lot of practice, a lot of like understanding all the different lines and goldfishing this deck a lot, just to be able to play it. You know, like it's a very hard deck to pick up.
Yeah, it is. This one in particular, I would actually say this is the hardest Highlander deck I've come across. I've played a lot of combo.
Sure.
I've played Storm, I've played Channel Mirror, I've played all these other combo decks, and this is by far the hardest. In fact, of any format, this would be the hardest. So Goldfishes, and you get the hang of it, and you understand the combos, and you get some of the lines, and you might get a few more complicated hands. But then you play it with an opponent. And the opponent will interact with you if you want to play real Magic.
Exactly.
And that just causes all of those goldfishes you've got. You go, oh yeah, whoops. And so I've actually cheated a little bit. And for the mana base, originally I had all 10 dual lands. I've cut Plateau because we all know that's awful for Gemstone Mine. But other than that, I just didn't want to have to think about which lands I had to fetch in order to make sure I had my colours on the relevant turn. So I've just put all the jewels in there, and getting your combination is enough, because most of the spells are single coloured, any of all the ones you'll be casting anyway. There's only 20 lands in the deck, with Novish Spirit Guide and Lotus Petals as semi-lands. You're not planning to cast too many spells that cost more than 2. It does happen, but Spellseeker and Eternal Witness and Necromancy, they're spells you might cast, but they're definitely not game plan numero.
Not your main game plan. I've seen a couple of these Hermit Druid lists, and they can kind of play around with the win con a little bit. Just being able to flip your deck over into your graveyard, it leaves yourself open to a couple of other options, but it's mainly what you decide to dread return. So I've seen a list that played Madcap Experiment, Lord of Extinction,
Murderous
and
Redcap, Mimeoplasm, and Lord of Extinction.
Yeah.
Yep, that's true.
Is there any reason to not play that list over this list?
So the differences here is that Azami Lady of Scrolls is a card that I can board out in almost any of the matchups. So I'm actually only playing like Angel of Glory's Lives, Labman, and Hapless Researcher just is a card that you can incidentally play that also does the role. So it's fewer cards really. It's also that each of these cards are castable. There's just other incidental lines. So Flash Angel of Glory's Rise or reanimating it to get back your Hermit Druid is just something that you can do. So I've had a game where I've milled my whole deck and then I've tried to Dread Return Grand Abolisher to stop my opponent's graveyard hate. And they've tried to exile my graveyard and I've gone Flash Angel of Glory's Rise in response to get back all the humans that won the game anyway.
Oh no. Yeah,
so there are just incidental synergies that you get from this version of the combo. I'm not saying that Mimeoplasm doesn't hold value, and Murderous Redcap and Lord of Extinction are probably more castable than Angel of Glory's Rise and Azami. Triple blue and 7 mana are a bit much of a stretch for a 20 land deck. One of which is bizarre, but you don't need those cards, I think, in this particular shell. It's beneficial when you want to hit people. Also, Hex Mage has been played more often in the Gardening Australia lists, whether it's Living Wish or main deck. And Vampire Hex Mage actually stops that combo. If they put it all on and you just remove the counters from the Lord of Extinction on the Mimeoplasm, you deal them all of 2 damage and continue playing.
Okay. Good things to keep in mind. Moving on to the sideboard now, why don't you go over your lists and what do you bring up? What do you bring in against which matchup?
Okay, so sideboard, there are a few quintessential choices that you just really need to be playing, and the rest of it's kind of freeform and it depends on what you're going with. So you can play the Red Elemental Blast or Pyroblast, but I prefer Swan Song. It means that you might lose with slightly more counter wars because it's a blue spell and it can be pyroed back on the swing, but it does counter Blood Moon and Back to Basics, and these are the cards that are just truly awful for you. There are incidental sorceries you might want to hit, like Thoughtseize occasionally, and the 2/2 really isn't too relevant for you. So I prefer Swan Song in that role over the Red Blast, but you can pick your poison. I definitely feel Xanted Swarm's important because you have all these creature tutors, and it's just another way to stop spells from being countered.
Great.
So instead of Pithing Needle and a couple of other like Stifle effects that you might want to use to stop your opponent using Nail Spell Bomb, Relic of Progenitors and things like that, I just have Null Rod and Stony Silence. I play Lotus Petal as the only artifact besides Null Rod in my sideboard. So Lotus Petal in the whole 75. And you just board that out, and you can bring in a Null Rod and Stony Silence. And this also stops decks like Storm and Channel Mirror and other fast combo decks, and it's just an incidental piece of hate. It stops equipment like Chit, Skull Clamp, Pod, anything else that your opponent's trying to do, and it's just a card you can bring in nice and easy and solves that problem. Ray of Revelation is another one I found important. So Abrupt Decay does a very similar role, but Ray of Revelation hits Humility and Rest in Peace, and a couple of those cards. So Abrupt Decay can't be countered, but you really want to be able to just dump your yard and still be able to do it with like a couple of other things. You can entomb it, so it's got slightly more utility. You can't hit the Humility, you can't hit the moat if you happen to be going that route. You do have a Woodfall Primus in your main deck, and there's enough ways to put that in play that you can destroy most enchantments. But Revelation has slightly more utility. It also comes in against the Reanimator Mirror. Mirror. And you can destroy their enchantments that bring things back.
Great.
So then you need some form of creature removal for the hate bears. So Dismember is one card that I've used. Shriekmaw is one that you can tutor for with the World of Tutor Sylvan Tutor, and I think that card's excellent. I'm actually playing that at the moment over Dismember in my sideboard. Swords to Plowshares is another one. So Swords to Plowshares and Dismember both fill a very similar role. One costs you life, but the Swords to Plowshares I prefer, one, because you can cast it through Omegas of the Moon with your Riftstone Portal in your graveyard. Also, it hits bigger threats. Your Scavenging Ooze never gets out of reach. So you can just hit that there. You also want some amount of burn hate. I'm undecided at this point whether I want between 2 and 3 cards. You've got Civi's Ruse, you've got Orum's Cure, you've got Invigorate, Mutagenic Growth doesn't quite cut it. But, so the ones that I go with generally are Invigorate, There are times when just pumping your opponent's thing or your thing can be right. I did have an instance where pumping my opponent's creature in order to kill my Hulk on the swing was relevant. Reanimated a Hulk on turn 2 and then got to invigorate their creature to kill it. And Orm's Cure. Orm's Cure is the one that's searchable through Spellseeker.
Yep.
And prevents 4 damage to a target. So it can also stop damage to you.
Yep.
It just has that more versatility. And I prefer the ones that don't require your opponent to have a mountain, just because they can be playing off Blackcleave Cliffs and things, very budget lands. So I generally go Invigorate as my first choice, Orm's Cure as my second, and then one of the Civvy's effects. Pernicious Deed is a catch-all that I put in the sideboard. It does cost 3, that makes it harder to cast, but it hits all the hate, and it's something that I board in when I'm unsure what I'm against.
Yeah,
and it just gives me that out.
Yeah, gives you a bit of protection.
Yeah, Pact of Negation I think is also essential. Fills a similar role to Xantataunt, but it costs 0. They can't remand it efficiently. It just has that answer all factor to it. You're not going to hit discard spells with it, but discard spells I haven't found are too much of an issue for this deck.
Yeah, right.
Carpet of Flowers is just a necessity. I think if you're playing green in this format, Carpet of Flowers should be in your sideboard. It gives you so much mana. It actually lets you cast your threats in this particular deck. And then I've got something like another effect that hits those artifacts and enchantments that you don't like to see. So I've got Nature's Claim.
Yep.
Again, I want something that can hit Humility. So again, I don't have Abrupt Decay or a Natural State or something like that. I've gone with the Claim. There are few enchantments in the deck. I mean, there is the super niche line of Animate Dead my Hulk, Nature's Claim my Animate Dead, win the game. But that's something that you can play around. I've looked at Thoughtseer's Duress Inquisition effects in the sideboard. At the moment, I'm off them, but they're a flavour of the week. I think it's very meta-dependent.
Okay.
Those are most of the cards in the sideboard. You can play a couple of other things, like Shred Memory if you want to go deeper, but getting to that 3 mana, I think, sort of goes away from the main vein of the deck.
Yep.
And any creatures you can play that are tutors, so Wisp-Mare's one I've considered, Ingot Tutor, things like that, that fill that role. But again, I'm most afraid of Humility, because the deck has great difficulty beating that card. I mean, it's unlikely that they will necessarily get it down under your kill, but if they've got the ability to just constantly leave up blue mana and you have to think about when you're going to go for it, Humility is a real threat.
Yeah, absolutely.
You do have to maintain Graveyard Order when you play this deck, because there's a Shallow Grave in the main. I mean, you can board it out, but you still should be maintaining Graveyard Order in Highlander.
Yeah, absolutely.
As far as boarding out goes, I generally hit an Azami straight off the bat. I also might play a Cavern of Souls in the sideboard,
for sure.
which the Gemstone Mine and that are sort of interchangeable. This creature type's name is 90% of the time human. But occasionally you could name Core or Cephalid.
Sure.
Wizard over Cephalid. You can board out, so the Lotus Petal obviously comes out if you bring in the Null or Stony Silence.
Yep.
Azami goes out as my first choice, and occasionally it'll just be a deed if I've killed them really quickly. World Gorger Dragon if they have White and Removal Swords, Departure, that kind of thing.
Yep.
You do have the ability to play the Grand Abolisher first, and it does blink the World Gorger Dragon, but they don't have the option to kill it in such a way that you will lose all your permanents.
Right.
There's also the line, just for those looking for all the lines, that you can animate dead something and then flash your World Gorger Dragon, and it separates the animate dead, and then you get to go off.
Yep.
You can also just reanimate your World Gorger Dragon. You have a 7/7 flying trample, and if they ever kill it, you'll kill them with your permanents coming back. Take out the Azami. Depending on what I'm coming up against, I might take out the Misstep. It's not a high priority, but it's something I've considered. The World Gorger Dragon, if they're going to remove it. So I consider taking out, depending on the matchup, one of the Narcomoeba Sacred Cat Fate Stitcher.
Okay.
It's almost never the Fate Stitcher.
These are your stuff that comes back to the battlefield easily after you flip everything.
You only need 3 of them to go off, and you're often going off when you've played another creature and you've got something in play. It's only the Hermit Druid that requires the 2 extra.
Yep.
The Cephalid Breakfast only requires 1. So just having that 1 extra creature. So Narcomoeba comes out because you can draw it, and it's an awful draw. And sometimes it's Sacred Cat, and it really depends on the matchup. Cabal Therapy will come out because it is a way to sacrifice your Hulk if you have to just reanimate it in play, but that line I find doesn't come up often enough for you to be able to reliably need that Cabal Therapy. And you do have a Dread return, and casting 2 additional guys most of the time isn't an issue. I did lose a game recently to Goblins because I couldn't find a 3rd creature. But yeah, Cabal Therapy is another card you can take out if you're not trying to have to rip things from their hand when you're going off.
Okay.
I wouldn't take out the Memories Journey because it's that safety net.
Yeah, sure.
The Pull from Eternity is a card that you don't necessarily need in the main deck game 1. It just gives you that extra oomph against Deathrite Shaman and Scavenging Ooze.
Yep.
But you can put that in the sideboard. If you do, it comes in every game 2 and 3. At the moment, this deck is 6 points. So if you want to put in that Limdal's Vault survival of the fittest, green sun zenith if you really think you need it.
Yep.
You can do that. You can go merchant scroll. There are a whole bunch of choices. I think this is the tuned version of the list. I don't want a 7th point. When they put a point on Spellseeker or back on Worldly Tutor or back on World Gorger Dragon, heaven forbid, then sure, I'll be at 7 points.
Yeah.
But it's another one of those things that I just feel safe playing this deck at the moment. It performs reasonably well. Even in control metas, you kind of hold against those decks. Going all in with the combo is something you can do on the blind, but just holding, and you're so scary. I mean, you can Entomb Shallowgrave your Hermit Druid, you can flash at an end of turn fairly.
Yeah.
You've got all these lines that scare them, and as long as you have cards in hand, they're kind of scared to see what happens.
Yeah, absolutely.
You can board out the Bazaar as well if you really think it's going to come down to card advantage, in which case you're keeping the Azami in just in case it ever ends in play.
Yeah, sure.
But that's not a thing I've come across often enough.
Okay. What would you? Who would you recommend this deck to? What type
Someone
of
who
person do you
wants a
think?
challenge.
Yeah, sure. Okay.
Someone who's interested in playing. They've played a lot of combo decks. They want something new and interesting. They enjoy complicated lines. I mean, you can look at this deck and go, yeah, I can see how this works. But playing it is a whole nother experience against an opponent. There are so many lines, and working out to choose the right creatures, even with the mana base as is, fetching the wrong land on turn 1 it's quite consistent. It has some issues. So I found my experience in testing, anyway, is that it has difficulty against Kess, but the only times I've actually played it in an event, I've beaten Kess every time. I find you can mulligan reasonably well with this deck. You can go down to, if you're really digging for that, I want to win on turn 1, turn 2, turn 3 kind of thing, you can mulligan down to 4. I've done a bunch of maths with this deck when it was playing the Imperial Seal back many years ago when the points were different.
Yep.
You had 5 tutors for Hermit Druid, and you could just go for it. But I find that mulling to 5 isn't too cutting. Depends on the matchup again. I mean, it's not what I want to do against a deck playing Mind Twister or lots of counter spells.
Yeah, sure.
But I don't have too many issues doing it. So if you draw that dud hand, you can really look at it and definitely go for the 6.
Okay, sounds great. Well, that's been fantastic. Thank you so much for this in-depth analysis of Hermit Druid, the 7-point Highlander deck from Jacob Dunn. Thank you once again, Jacob.
Thank you.
And have a wonderful night.